I'm Vanessa Louise. Welcome to Choose You, Choose Bliss, where we believe in one goal, one purpose, love. Through shared experiences, we aim to enlighten, enrich and enroll you in actively applying the tools and techniques to enable and continue healing for your whole self. Now is the time to take back our power, reconnect with our true selves, each other, including the world around us, and live life with confidence, purpose and joy. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing you. Did you know the shocking statistic from the Priory? And I quote, "Eating disorders are responsible for more loss of life than any other mental health condition." As human beings, we need food to survive. Yet in a world of limitless information, how have we got less understanding of food is fuel to thrive? Because it's not actually about the food. Let's touch on what is behind our food intake, how to get back to the true purpose of food in our lives. My guest said, "I don't want anyone to feel what I felt." The self-hatred was deeply intense. I just didn't want to be me. I wanted to be anyone but me. As ever, it's an absolute blessing to be here sharing space with you all. And today we're talking about a powerful subject that dominates so many people's lives and not always in a good way. Emotional and eating disorders affects too many of us, and sadly due to a lack of understanding about what is a healthy way to eat. This podcast brings you real experiences from real people, and today it's my pleasure to introduce to you the brilliant Lisa Unger, whose insights and passion will inspire you to see you and your life and your relationship with food in a whole new light. So let's delve straight in and get emotionally naked with Lisa. Thank you, Lisa, for being here and sharing your wisdom with us today.
Oh, that's really kind. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Your wisdom has helped me in so many ways over the last few years. So please, why don't you just start with your personal story?
Okay. So, well, have you ever stood in front of the mirror and just hated yourself? Because that was my experience. I was 5.5 stone overweight. I'd already tried and failed at every diet that I'd been on, and I was just terrified that this was how it was always going to be for me. And weight and food dominated my life and infected every minute of every day. So I was a secret eater, and how it started was unfortunately when I was 6, my elder brother passed away from cancer. And I didn't want to be, obviously I saw my parents grieving terribly, and I just didn't want to give them any worries. And so I became the good girl. And I tried so hard, if I was upset about anything, I didn't show it. I never, I just tried to keep everything calm at home. And so if I felt anything, if I had any emotion, I would bury it. And a really good way of burying emotion is by eating, because it's very numbing. It releases, endorphins people talk about that help, in the moment, that help you feel good. And I was a secret eater. So the minute the kitchen was clear, I'd go and take a packet of biscuits or the crisps, and I'd eat them really quickly because I didn't want to be caught with them. I'd hide the wrappers. I didn't even enjoy them. And so when I started to develop from being very, very tiny little thing, I suddenly ballooned, and it just became a pattern that I would, eat all this food. I'd go on a diet. I lost weight every single time. But then I'd end up breaking it because it just wasn't sustainable. I'd put on even more weight than when I started. And looking back, I didn't realize that what I was struggling with, it wasn't a lack of willpower. It wasn't because I was greedy or I needed just to be more disciplined. It was food became my coping strategy for life at
Mm.
that time. And then after that, it also became habit and everything else. And I was what I call a disordered eater.
Nice.
And as I said, for me, it was never about the food. It was really what I felt about myself, my emotions, my beliefs, and these habits that I developed over years of dieting and self criticism.
Mm. I think what you have just described, just in those few minutes, I mean, I'm nodding away thinking, blimey, flipping heck, are you in my head? And I wonder how many other people are listening to that, because isn't that why the diet, in inverted commas, because we're on audio,
Mm,
is making so much money by keeping us stuck in that cycle without addressing the actual root problem? And they
absolutely.
speak to our pain
Yeah.
like you just had. I mean, I think you're speaking. Many of us have got men and women of all ages as well. And I think what scares me is actually I'm hearing of it happening so much younger
Mm.
than
Oh,
I did when I was younger. So not only have you just described what we've all got going on in our heads, I think you're picking up points and pointing out the fact that how many of us have said, I just need more willpower, or once I get to this point, or we just get, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about the disordered eating rather than the eating disorder, because actually one of your specialisms is emotional eating, isn't it?
absolutely.
The disorder. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so why don't you start with kind of what drove you to understand more? Because you've got you studied nutritional therapy.
Yeah. I studied nutritional therapy and I absolutely loved it, but I didn't know what to do with it. So my first sort of job, if you like, was it wasn't a job. I rented a room in a Pilates studio, and automatically in that environment, people come to you and they want to lose weight. But for me, I didn't want to put them on a diet
No.
because I knew that dieting it doesn't work because it's not dealing with, as you say, it's not dealing with all the background, the real stuff.
Mm.
Because if I said to you, okay, you want to lose weight, what do you want to do? You'd say, oh, well, I need to move a bit more, I need to eat less, and
Mm.
whatever. And if it was that easy, this dieting industry, which is vast, wouldn't exist.
Well, and also we're bored of hearing eat less, move more,
Yeah,
really, aren't we? Sleep, drink more water, blah, 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 blah. And I think that's why we switch off, which
yeah.
is why I like your work, because
Oh,
you're scientific and the way you put it across, you help me understand more about my eating, my body, food. And it's this whole education bit that we've spoken about previously, but in actually understanding when we know why we're doing
mm,
it and what we're doing, how becomes so much easier. So,
absolutely.
yeah, so the studying in the nutritional therapy. Yeah.
Yeah. So an eating disorder, just to start with that, because
Mm.
that's easier to explain, is a diagnosed medical condition and it
Right.
follows specific criteria. Whereas disordered eating can be harder to recognize because actually it hides in plain sight. It's often disguised nowadays as normal behaviors. So, for example, this is just a simple example that we often feel really virtuous when we've eaten a salad. People think of salad as being healthy, as diet food,
Mm.
whatever. And we feel really guilty for eating a piece of cake.
Mm.
And this is a good at, it's we're labeling food good and we're
Mm.
labeling food bad. And this mindset actually reinforces an unhealthy relationship with food
Mm.
because it ties our choices to fear.
Right.
Yeah. And if you have this fear around what you class as bad food, it leads to guilt and shame. and when we feel guilt and shame, we comfort ourselves and we often turn to more food. So disordered eating is any irregular eating behavior that's driven by thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and it's not connected to physical hunger. Yeah.
I love that. That's a great, I mean, and again, how many people are going to be nodding along with this and going, absolutely, I recognize myself in that, or a loved one. And yeah.
And sorry, Vanessa, I'm just going back one thing that I just want people to really understand. There is no such thing as bad food unless it's gone mouldy.
Oh, but I was just about to say, why do we have a problem with labeling things good or bad? And that in itself causes us a problem. No bad food unless it's mouldy. Yeah.
Because what happens is we put those bad foods on a pedestal. And those are the things we're trying to avoid. And actually, if we can usually avoid, I can not buy chocolate.
Yeah.
Chocolate's my thing. I cannot buy it.
Yeah.
But I used to do that. And then what would happen is when, I don't know, went to my friend's house and they had it out, I wouldn't be able to stop. My hand would be there. The whole lot would be gone.
Yeah. So out of sight, out of mind. But actually, it's about having it in sight and being able to choose from not fear. So whatever that is for you as an individual, choosing from a healthy, loving, heart-based place rather than because I'm moving away from something, I want to avoid something, which is what fear is. Yeah, I love that. So those are that disordered eating is tied to choices around food.
Yeah.
And choices around fear, where we have labeled it bad. And then absolutely, how many times do we eat that, in inverted commas, bad food, donuts, breads, there's all sorts of things. It's not just sugary stuff nowadays that we've labelled bad, but attached to that then is that guilt and that shame. And that's actually then the problem.
Yeah, that becomes the driver for us wanting to eat it more.
Yeah. Wow. So disordered eating. Okay.
So how I work is I've sort of, I have these 4 pillars of transformation. For me, they're 4 pillars of transformation.
Yeah.
Because if you look at, I don't know, just for example, the slimming clubs, the diets you can go on, all they do is focus on food. And as we've mentioned before, they're not looking at all the other reasons why you're finding it so difficult in the first place. So I have 4 pillars which I work under, and this they sort of cover all the areas that are keeping people stuck in their eating behaviours.
Brilliant. And I want to feature those pillars today because this will help other people understand, which is the key thing about your work, and helping them educate themselves to make better choices about the foods that they eat. Plain and simple. Okay. So why don't you start with number 1?
Okay, well, so number 1 is eat, which I know we just mentioned food, but it's not about restricting. It's not about taking foods out your diet. What I would teach people is how to eat, because so there's lots of things that come under that umbrella. When you were a kid, well, when I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to leave the table until I'd finished everything on my plate.
Yes, because I think that's a common.
Yeah, because the Africans in Africa were starving and I was so lucky to have this food. So I've taken that into adulthood as well. It's like my food rules. The thing is that if you're focusing on what's on your plate, you stop listening to your body. You stop trusting your body. And if you listen to your body's going to tell you how hungry you are and how full you are.
Yeah.
So we need to start listening to our bodies and trusting our bodies. Okay. So this is part of the eat pillar. This is part of teaching people how to eat, that we have to slow down and we have to tune in, which some people find really hard at first.
Yeah.
We have to tune in and know how hungry we are and how full we are.
Right. And
I've got a tip for you, which sort of goes back to the good and bad food. A tip for everybody. So I do this with absolutely everybody, and it's the first thing I do. I want you to give yourself permission to eat. to eat so as I said, my thing is chocolate. So I give myself permission to eat the chocolate. But I have certain rules, they're the only rules I give anybody, about how they're going to eat it.
Okay.
I want them to take a portion. I want them to put it on a lovely plate. I want them to sit at the table or sit, if they haven't got a table, sit at the sofa, but undistracted, no television on.
Mm.
And I want them to really look and enjoy this chocolate. They have to look at it, they have to smell it, they have to nibble it and savor the taste.
Love
Okay.
it.
And when it's gone and that little gremlin pops up on your shoulder to say, well, go and have more, go and have more, you can say to yourself, well, I don't need more because I can have more tomorrow. I've enjoyed that. And if I have more, I won't enjoy it in the same way because I'm eating it for the sake of it. I'm not eating it because for enjoyment.
I love that. And again, coming back to the permission to eat, the portion, giving yourself that, and actually looking at it and enjoying it, you're engaging the senses, which will keep you in the present moment.
Absolutely.
And you're not running about the kitchen going, my piece of chicken, I'm going to stuff that in while I'm just running about, putting my shoes on to fall out the front door. Yeah. It's a mindful, conscious choice, which therefore will feel more like a gift to you. Because I do that with my dark chocolate. That was actually one of the things that you taught me. So I have the Lindt and 2 squares a day. And you're so right, because I go to the cupboard, we get the 2 squares out, we enjoy it. I must admit, it's not as lengthy process as that. So I will actually manage that better.
Yeah.
But I do know that those 2 squares, I get the best of the best. I love the salt crystals on my tongue. I'm engaging the senses. I treat myself to that experience, not just the chocolate, the actual, this is for me. And you're so right. You don't go and get the next bit because you do know, because you're giving yourself permission to have it. It's not naughty. It's not in secret. It's not hiding. It's not all of those things that indicate that there is an issue there with the thing I shouldn't be having. Whether it's cheese or crisps or whatever. I love the idea. Put it in a plate, enjoy it, make a real thing about it.
So on your tongue is covered with taste receptors. Okay. And the more you eat of one kind of food, the more desensitized they come to the taste.
Wow.
So if you're eating, I don't know, 3 mouthfuls of chocolate, or my favorite food, if you're eating 3 mouthfuls of chocolate, I've got all the pleasure from that chocolate. If I carry on eating it, it's not about the pleasure. Sometimes it's about sabotaging what other efforts I've made. Sometimes it's about, giving up or thinking I'm greedy or whatever else. Now, sometimes when you have, there are some people who'd say to me, I just can't eat that much. It's really difficult. At the moment, it's habit that you might eat the whole bar of chocolate. So, for some people, it works exactly as I've said. For some people at the beginning, they have to okay, I'm going to eat that chocolate. I'm going to enjoy it. And then I need to go and do something else. I need to go in another room. I need to have a bath. I need to do something that physically removes me from that chocolate. It won't always be like that. It's only because you're changing, long-term habits.
Love it. So you're changing what has become familiar. You're in that transition stage, but equally have that thing in place to do after.
Yeah.
Call a friend or whatever it might be, go for a walk, but to have that thing in place that after you've enjoyed that, then you have that thing in place to go, right, okay, love that. Okay, so actually giving yourself permission to eat.
Giving yourself permission to eat. And that comes under my eat pillar, but there's also, I teach people about hunger and fullness, about eating slowly, about what your plate of food should look like.
Because a lot of these are habits, like you say, we just portion. I live with 2 strong men. So I sometimes have to remember, I don't have to eat the amount that they do. Yeah. And I don't need that food. Are you sure? You sure you're not going to have any more, Mum? No, I'm not being daft here. I can't stomach, and I actually don't want the amount. So that was always my thing growing up, was portion size. So, but coming back to the fullness part, one thing I do want to bring up is listening to our bodies. That's a real problem for people because they've numbed themselves out. So we really got to practice listening to what our bodies are saying to us.
So just to explain, you've got two ways of knowing whether you've had enough to eat. So in your gut are like nerve receptors, and as your stomach stretches, it's going to get to a point and they'll go, yep, that's enough. And the brain gets the message, oh, I've had enough. No one listens to that. No. We just don't. We're too busy in life, because even if we're sitting at the table eating, we're chatting, or, we've got stresses and strains, we're thinking about whatever. Life goes on, and we're not aware of that one. The other way that we know we've had enough to eat is when you digest food, when it's breaking down in your stomach, hormones are released. Hormones, to me, are like chemical messengers, and they go through your bloodstream to the brain, and they'll tell the brain that you've had enough to eat. Trouble is, they take 20 minutes to get there. So if you're eating really, let's say you finished your food in 10 minutes, you're thinking, oh, I'm still hungry. You'll take a second and you'll eat that. And that's why it can get to like 20 minutes and you suddenly go, oh,
yes,
I have too much to eat.
Or you are out for dinner and you're eating 2 or 3 portions, courses over a period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you order it and you just keep going. Because okay, that makes sense.
Well, and if you also think about the tongue receptors, the taste receptors, they've been desensitized to the main course because you've eaten all of that. But they cannot, when you hear, oh, would you like profiteroles for dessert? Oh yeah, I'm full, but yeah, I can make room for profiteroles. It's because your tongue is thinking, oh yeah, I'll have that flavor. That's a new flavor. I'll be awake for that one.
Got you. Okay. So it's about really retraining, being conscious and aware of what you're eating, how you're eating it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
So really that's all around the first pillar. So as I was saying, it's not necessarily what you're eating, because there's no food is banned. In fact, it's encouraged.
Yeah.
But what we're focusing on is how to eat.
Yes.
So the second pillar, that is feel. So obviously this one is about understanding and processing emotions, but the ones that drive our eating habits.
Right. This would be a big subject for a lot of people, because there are lots of us that know we might emotionally eat, but actually understanding then what we do about that is going to be really helpful. Well,
the first thing that I would like to stress is that everybody emotionally eats.
So don't beat yourself up as being that one person who can't sort it out. Yeah.
We all I get angry. I'm going to open those crisps, and usually I'll have a glass of wine. And, and I might feel better. I might feel better at the end of it. I think when it becomes a problem is when it's your only or your most used way of coping with the emotion.
Love that. It becomes a problem. We'll repeat that: when it is your only or your most used way of dealing with a problem. Love Absolutely. It. So that's a really good thing to become aware of.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we think about what emotions are our brain's way of it's sort of the brain translates and makes sense of what it's seen in the outside world from our experiences. And a lot of those experiences actually come from when we were children.
Yeah.
So if you just think about it, is if you are scared of wasps, it's your brain. You were stung by one once, and your brain sees that as danger. And so what happens is that we see a wasp, we think it's going to sting us, we feel the fear, and the brain will release chemicals, adrenaline, which is going to help us run away from that wasp.
Yes. Okay. So we are re-experiencing the energy, the feelings of that past experience, and we're reinfecting our system with that emotion.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and lots of this does happen when we're children. So I want you to think back to when you were a child. Like, some people, their parents aren't able to express their emotions easily. So it could be that, your father, for example, didn't show emotion and didn't understand emotion. I mean, or mother, anybody. And they didn't understand the emotion. So did they laugh? Did they cry? Did they tell you that they were sad? Or did you pick up on what they were feeling by the atmosphere? Like if there was shouting or if doors were slammed, is that the way you picked up on emotions? And did that environment make you scared to show emotions? And then, of course, there's the things like, when you were hurting, were you given food to cheer you up? If I fell over, I was given, oh, don't worry, darling, here's a sweetie and you'll feel better. So then I've made that connection between pain and food.
And all of this, a lot of this can happen unconsciously. So we're unaware that we're doing it.
Absolutely.
And then we don't understand the connection between why, when we're sad now, we might reach for the wine or the chocolate or the sweets or whatever it might be. Okay.
Absolutely. It could be, for example, my grandmother used to make the most incredible apple crumble. And I remember really happy times in her house eating apple crumble. Well, maybe it's because, I associate apple crumble with being happy. Maybe that's why I choose to eat something when I'm sad, because I'm trying to evoke that happiness.
Yes. And this is powerful, because this is what you help people do, is understand themselves better, their drivers, and maybe what's tucked away beneath the surface that we're unconscious of, unaware of, and a lot of the time unprocessed emotion that is going to keep calling the shots and helping you reach for food.
Yeah, definitely.
There
are some people who can't even label their emotions in the first place. They don't know what they're feeling. So
that's common, because emotions don't have a language. So
absolutely.
Okay.
And so actually we need to know what we're feeling to be, a lot of the work that I do is bringing awareness, because when you're aware of something, then it's easier to do something about it. If you don't know you're angry, how can you find coping strategies to help you with that anger? You'll be looking to numb it because you're feeling uncomfortable and you don't know what it's about.
Yeah.
So one of the things we do is we get, we talk about, we find out how easy it is for somebody to label emotions, and I do help with that.
Okay.
So we identify the thoughts, the emotions, but emotions don't happen in isolation. So if we go back to the wasp, the first thing that happened is I see the wasp and I think that wasp is going to sting me. So before the emotion, there's always a thought. It's a thought, an emotion. In that case, the wasp is fear. And the behavior is I'm going to run away as fast as I can.
Yeah.
Or in other circumstances, I'm going to turn to food because that's going to make me feel better. One of the reasons that we might turn to food is I sort of describe the brain as like a filing cabinet. And it's got all the records of my experiences. And when I have the thought, certain thoughts that lead to certain emotions, if in the past I've always turned to food and that food has helped me feel better, even if it's momentary, my brain's going to say, oh, in the past, in that filing cabinet, she's got loads of records that say that food helps her, so we'll send her to the food.
Right. So it wants the shortest possible route out of that survival place. Okay.
So I help my clients to recognize their emotions, to process them, and then to help them find strategies so they're not always relying on food. And also that it's, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's really important to understand that emotional eating is not a catastrophe. It doesn't derail anything because you're not on a diet. There's nothing to derail. It's just an event. So my tip that I want to give people is actually work out that when you have emotionally eat, almost go back over it. What was the thought that led to it? What was the thought that led to the emotion? And is there another behavior another different way of coping that's gonna help. But one of the main things is, again, another permission thing. Give yourself permission to feel.
Yes.
People are so worried. I was talking to a client today. They're so worried about being angry. We're taught that being angry is wrong.
Yes.
And actually, it's not wrong to be angry. You're entitled to be angry. And sometimes for the anger to pass, you just have to sit with it.
Very much so. And that's my work. That's the thing we avoid is feeling. And we cannot heal if we don't feel. Exactly. Because it's trapped inside of us and it will always dominate thoughts and choices, behaviours. And we're talking about the behaviour we're talking about mainly today is reaching for food to numb the experience of that feeling that I don't like. I call it unlovely. And therefore, that's now become a habit. And actually, it's interesting because that was my thing growing up, struggling with my weight. I initially came to you because my energy levels were on the floor after being ill. And but one of the things that's really helped me now is we have certain places in our home, particularly where food is kept, fridge, cupboard, larders, whatever it might be. What I decided to do from working with you was any time I went to the fridge, not only did I have positive messages on my fridge anyway, but if I saw my hand open the fridge, I used to say stop. Or if I saw myself going to the larder or the crisp cupboard or whatever, because that would be my thing, I would just go stop. And then it would be, right, okay, so that's that. That pause, that boundary was actually my act of self-love, not the choice I made after. It was actually recognizing that I'm going to the cupboard. It's either not lunchtime or tea time, or actually I'm not hungry. And then I'll go, okay, why am I reaching into the cupboard? What is it that either just happened or maybe it was from this morning? I haven't quite recognized it. And I just get curious. And I ask myself those questions. And I don't think people do that. It's because a lot of it is so numb and the habitual thing of reaching for the food has become so automatic. And it just, that tip you gave me was just say, stop, no, and just become aware of it was vital. I mean, obviously I fall off my perch sometimes, but generally now the habit is to inquire.
But I think, Vanessa, that's really important. You're not on a perch. That sometimes you're reaching for the fridge. It's, as you said, it's automatic and it's not about the food. Sometimes, let's say just angry, because I talked about anger. Sometimes you feel angry and actually it's fine to eat that packet of crisps. But it's doing it with the awareness and it's doing it almost like I'm going to eat those crisps and I'm going to do it slowly and enjoy them. It's not a secret. It's not a punishment. It's not an anything. It's I'm eating the crisps because I want the crisps.
Yes. And actually, like you spoke about, enjoying the process. Look at it, enjoy it, feel it, engage in it. Because actually then I'm doing it from a choice of wanting to do it for myself rather than the choices that are tied up in fear.
Exactly.
And that is a very different energy to do the same thing of eating the crisps. Brilliant.
And sometimes that actually I don't want those crisps. I actually want to sort this out with whoever's made me angry, or I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to jump up and down, or I'm going to put some music on and dance. So that's where the food isn't always the coping strategy. But the first thing we've got to do is bring in that awareness.
Yes.
Because a lot of it is just automatic.
Yeah, definitely. And food diaries and all that kind of thing are really helpful. Being in conversation with you, absolutely. Okay, brilliant.
Thank you.
So that's the feel.
That's the feel.
Feel pillar.
Okay. EF. And now we have G, which is grow, which is my third pillar. And grow is about challenging those old beliefs, building new habits, really that support the way that you want to live. And so I thought that for this pillar, rather, because it's very big, we've got habits in there, as I said, beliefs from that when we were children, like my belief about I've got to finish my plate, all of that.
Yeah.
But I want to mention limiting beliefs.
Okay.
Because I hear this a lot. How many times have you said things like, oh, I can't eat one, I'll eat the packet?
Yeah.
Or, my client will come, oh, I had a terrible week. I binged yesterday. you know, also people picture forward, like this wishful thinking, if I'm slim, I'm never going to overeat again. Black and white thinking, oh, it's wrong to waste food. Chocolate is bad for you.
Yeah.
Limiting beliefs are deeply ingrained thoughts. We all have them. And they're beliefs that we hold about ourselves and the way that we should live our lives. And they encourage us to think horrible things about ourselves.
And again, a lot of that is unconscious. So, of course, you can't change it if you don't know. Yeah, so it's a big old subject. Okay.
Yeah.
But we can't grow. I think the point you're trying to make here is that you can't grow if you're stuck in that loop cycle. Right. Yeah. Okay.
So this is just an example. So let's say I eat my breakfast and I feel really bloated.
Mm.
The automatic thought is, oh my goodness, I ate too much. I'm going to get, most people come to see me because they want to lose weight. It's just that the dieting world has failed them. So weight is always a topic of conversation. So, oh no, I ate too much. I'm going to put on weight. I'm panicking. What can I do? Oh, I won't eat lunch. I won't eat dinner. You miss the meals. It comes to 4:30. You're absolutely starving, and all the food that you've got, nothing's prepared. You're eating the chocolate and biscuits, and then you feel really guilty. You feel enormous. You feel a lot of shame, and it's this, this cycle really of, and you talk to yourself really negatively. So we can overcome these beliefs by challenging them and replacing them with more empowering beliefs. I mean, just for example, if you ate breakfast and felt bloated, does it automatically mean that you ate too much? Was it a different breakfast to the one you ate normally? When was the last time you went to the toilet? There can be 1,000,001 reasons, but when we have all these rules and we're quite rigid, trying maybe to lose weight or trying to be healthy, that's when I feel that these limiting beliefs really take control.
And actually, control, they then restrict the growth because they keep you small and stuck. And it's tiring being in that place. And I think then people I know from my own experience, you get to the point where you go, I've just tried everything. I've just tried everything. And that's that cyclical place that we're bound in, and we can't see outside of that. And then that's why using you as a mirror, you're able to understand it from a different perspective, what's going on inside of you. Because it is liberating when we hear what's going on for us, when we hear how we're talking to ourselves, that we didn't know that that's what we were saying to ourselves before.
Absolutely. And also we don't know how to talk to ourselves in a different way.
No, I totally get that. The old way is the familiar way. And actually looking at ourselves differently, talking to ourselves differently is a practice.
Definitely. All of this is a practice. Nothing is, you might have light bulb moments, hopefully, as we've been talking, there's been some light bulb moments, but you have to practice the change. So if you think of it as like, I don't know, a motorway, the well-worn road is the one, if I eat one biscuit, I'll eat the packet.
Yeah.
And the first thing we have to do is bring awareness to that thought, because sometimes, as you said, we're thinking it, we're not even aware we're thinking it. So the first thing I want people to do is spend time reflecting on their thoughts and behaviors and listening to what the kinds of things that they're saying.
Especially when they're reaching for food?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Especially if they're reaching.
Either when they're reaching or after they've reached.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, okay.
Listen to what you're saying to yourself, and you're looking for patterns, thoughts, recurring patterns. So the first thing, as I said, you bring it into the conscious. And the second thing is that you want to reframe it. So if we talk about the biscuits, you're saying, oh no, I can't eat one, because if I eat one, I'll eat the packet. Well, does that happen all the time? No,
challenge it.
Actually, it happens when I'm on my own. It doesn't happen with other people. Well, what's different about when you're with other people? oh, well, it's, this, that. So what you're doing is you're showing yourself actually that it doesn't happen all the time, and it doesn't have to happen all the time.
But you're just listening to that narrative that you've got going on that's actually not true, effectively.
Yeah. And so that when you realize it doesn't happen all the time, the next time you get that thought, you can actually challenge it and say, no, that's not true.
I like that. Okay.
And things that can help also, like sometimes journaling on your thoughts can be really helpful. Just even doing yourself a voice note if you can't write it down, and you can listen to it at other times. And remember that you always have a choice. You have a choice to eat one biscuit, and you also have a choice to eat a packet. Once you've brought it into the conscious, that you can reframe it, that no, this is a choice, and just treat everything as a learning event. Excuse me. Treat it all as a learning event. And I do a lot of reframing with my clients, because our experiences sometimes lead us down this like rabbit hole of beliefs when there's no truth in it.
No, absolutely. And that's just the old conditioning and the old habit that's just become unconscious. Okay. Yeah.
So I've got one more pillar.
Okay.
Heal. And this is about healing our relationship with ourselves and with our body. So we were just talking about how harshly we speak to ourselves. And, we look in the mirror and we tell ourselves, that we look so fat, that that we don't like parts of our body, and how disgusting.
Tired or yeah.
And, our brain is listening to that. And the more we say it, the more it's going to believe us. So, people talk about, don't they, about doing gratitudes and affirmations. Well, these are like negative affirmations, aren't they? Because rather than saying, oh, I don't know, I am at peace and I am calm, you're saying how revolting you look.
Totally. And again, a lot of this is unaware that we're thinking it. I think what's the statistic of it being 60,000 thoughts a day, 90% of them are repeat from the day before and 50% negative. So a lot of those, many of those we don't know is what's going on. So a good indication actually I found is when I am caught up in a negative thought loop, I actually feel so low vibe. So I might not know what's going on in my thoughts, but if my energy is dropped, that for me is an indication that, oh gosh, let me just have a check here of what's going on in my mind. And you can check yourself that way, because I've realized a lot over the last few years is that if I'm using my mind to think, then it is my choice as to whether I think something lovely or unlovely. If I'm using my body to move, am I using it to move this way in a healthy way or that way in an unhealthy way?
That's a lovely way to think about it.
Because if we're using that energy, if I'm speaking, am I speaking words to myself or others or out into the world that are lovely and kind, or unlovely and harmful?
Yeah.
So we're doing these things anyway, because I think this is the challenge I get a lot, is I don't have time to journal. I don't have time to reflect. I haven't got time to look at myself. Well, okay, then you'll be forced to make time later. But actually, I don't think this is about time necessarily. I think it's about shift in perspective. So knowing that we think and we feel anyway, how can I help myself think and feel in a way that is, but that's again going to be alien. How many of us actually look in the mirror, or when we put on our body cream going, oh my God, my body's gorgeous. It's, I'm looking, I must admit, one thing I do say to myself now when I'm struggling, if my body is a certain way, I'm so grateful that this body gets to carry me around.
Well, I think that's
simple
a thing, because I never would, I don't expect anybody else, and I would never do it for myself, to look in the mirror and go, God, you look gorgeous. But actually,
especially in our underwear,
I can appreciate my body just for what it is. And that is not dependent on my size.
No. Or my skin texture, if my skin is soft, or absolutely. Yeah.
Or how grey I've got, or anything like that. It's purely, it is. Also, I don't, I think the only people who judge what the body shape and size of someone else are actually the people who are judging themselves against that person.
I couldn't agree with you more.
And
I so totally agree.
So it is coming from their insecurity.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a client today about dating, and we were saying that because she was concerned about, that if they met her, that they would think that, that she was of a larger size. And I was just saying, no, but you've already dismissed some people because your personalities haven't, coincided. And that's got nothing to do with their looks. It's to do with your personality. And what if you were talking to somebody who was an Adonis, but actually was so
boring as hell? Oh my God.
So it might be that person, whatever they look like, if they're the person that you're gelling with. It's not about your looks.
Absolutely. And also, I've totally come to appreciate that it is not the body that we're in, but it's the spirit within it. We cannot often fully explain why we love somebody, why we value somebody. It's because it's never about the way that they look. Truly, it's never about the way that how you feel about somebody is not about the way that they look. But we do have to have that healthy relationship with ourselves first, don't we?
Absolutely. Well, my husband met me when I was at my biggest, and it's our 40th wedding anniversary in May next year. So
congratulations and well done to your husband.
Thank you. No, I think well done to me, but thank you.
Well done to you for helping yourself feel great in your body. But I think it just goes to show, doesn't it? We see I personally believe our true beauty is our hearts. It's not what we look like. But it's learning to, and I like what you said earlier, it's learning to reframe it.
Yeah.
Because your brain is always listening.
Absolutely. So,
wow.
If, body esteem and dieting are very intertwined, because what happens is that we don't like what we see. We try to change it and we go on a diet. But then what happens is when the diet fails, and usually they do, our self-esteem drops. And the trouble is that then when our self-esteem drops, we again go on another diet trying to change it and to improve our body image. So body image, body esteem and self-esteem are also very, very intertwined.
And also we're relying on something outside of us to change how we feel. That's addiction.
Yeah.
Right? That's the disorder, rather than what you're talking about is using food and giving yourself permission to eat, which is your first pillar. Recognizing how you feel, allowing yourself to feel is also an inside job.
Yeah.
The your natural growing and evolving that comes from learning how to eat, how to feel, you naturally grow, which results in healing.
Absolutely.
And you then have a healthy relationship with yourself and your body because you relied on your inside environment first, not your outside.
Exactly. Well, so the first step in healing our relationship with ourselves is self-care. And self-care does not mean that we spend an hour meditating or having a massage. Very nice if we can, but most people don't. What I want people to do is remember those micro moments. So it's grabbing those little tiny moments when you can just do something for you. And it's not because you took the kids to school, and it's not because you cleaned the house or went and did a day's work. It's purely because you are you. So it could be that while the kettle's on, you sit in the chair and you just close your eyes and take slow breaths.
Habit stacking.
Yeah.
Okay.
It could be you grab a cup of tea and take it outside for a few minutes. And if you haven't got a few minutes, just pause. Pause for 10 seconds. Take a breath and then get on.
I'm a big advocate for that, because that's the boundary that will just break the habitual, unconscious reaching outside of me in this subject, food, rather than just giving myself a moment to appreciate myself.
And I want you to remember that, self-care can change because it's about what you need right now. So sometimes it might be that you need to make your bed, you need to tidy your room, you need to have that clear space.
Love that.
Sometimes it's that you need to leave the bed unmade.
Love it. And actually, by asking yourself and by doing all of these things that you're asking us to do, we will get better in tune with ourselves because we're inquiring, we're asking, what is it I need just right now?
Yeah.
And listening to that could change each time you ask.
Yeah.
And that's true self-care. I love that.
And with all of these pillars, like I've given you just all one little tip because I want you to start small. Whether it's you pausing for a minute for self-care or speaking kindly to yourself or giving yourself permission to eat your chocolate, just take it slowly, step by step, because you're changing habits of a lifetime.
Yes.
And if you try to do too much too soon, you're gonna struggle, and then you're just gonna give up.
And then you go back to old ingrained patterns.
Exactly.
And ways of being, and that's the loop that we want to break.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I love that. I've got a question for you as we wrap up.
Okay.
What would you say is your greatest learning in life, or the statement that defines what your life has taught you?
I think my greatest learning has been that it's just okay to be me. It's okay for me to have my own opinion. It's okay for my opinion to be different to yours. And that's okay. And we can still coexist thinking differently. So I think I found my voice, which I didn't have for an awfully long time.
And your voice came from your experience, your inquiry, your willingness to study, because you're educating yourself, and your qualifications have gone far beyond studying in nutritional therapy. Yes. Where can people, please, Lisa, find out more about you and how you can help? Thank you.
Well, I'm trying to do more on Instagram. So I'm on Instagram.
Wonderful.
I've got my website, which is just lisaunger.co.uk.
Okay.
And if anybody just wants to just have a chat, no pressure to do anything, but just have a chat.
Yeah.
And please get in touch.
That is very, very generous, because I think a lot of this disordered eating and eating disorders, as you've touched on so eloquently, there's a lot of guilt and shame wrapped up in that. And that is one of the toughest subjects that people don't want to talk about. It's really difficult. So to be able to reach out to you from your website, knowing that they can have just an initial chat, who knows what doors that can open to a much more healthier life once they understand who they are and their relationship with food. There is so much more that you could share. Your wealth of knowledge is second to none. That people can find out more about you on the website. I just want to say thank you. I'm so grateful that I met you those years ago, and that being you is okay. And I'm very grateful for you being you. So thank you so much. I very much appreciate you. The invitation is to take a few moments to reflect on what's resonated with you here today. Let us know what you find. Share this episode with those you love to practice your vulnerability and enable deeper connection with self, others, and the world around you. May you feel blessed and loved as you live your days with purpose and presence. Thank you for being here, and thank you for choosing you. I love you.